I should have listened to the warnings. Everyone in the village told me to stay away from the deep woods. They are cursed, they said. But I didn't believe in curses. I thought it was just old stories to scare people. I was wrong. It started with my job as a surveyor. The government wanted a map of the forest, and they hired me to do it. I thought it would be easy, a few days in the woods, some sketches, and then back home. The pay was good and I needed the money, so I packed my things and entered the woods. At first, it was beautiful. The trees were tall and thick, their branches like arms reaching for the sky. The air smelled fresh, and I could hear birds singing. But after a few hours of walking, the forest changed. The air grew cold, even though it was summer. The trees looked darker, their bark like cracked skin. The birds stopped singing. I felt like someone was watching me. I turned around, but no one was there. Still, the feeling didn't go away. I told myself it was just my imagination, that I was nervous because of the stories. But deep inside, I knew something was wrong. I set up my tent near a small clearing. It was getting dark, and I didn't want to keep walking. As I lit my campfire, I heard a sound. It was faint at first, but carried by the wind. I froze, listening. The sound grew louder. It was a voice, soft but clear, calling my name. Ahmed! Ahmed! No answer. The voice stopped, and the trees, but I saw nothing. Who's there? I shouted. My voice snap of a twig made me jump. My heart raced. I grabbed my flashlight and shone it into the trees, but I saw no one. Ahmed? Awful. The voice stopped, and the twig reasoned. The next day, I continued deeper into the woods, hoping to finish my work quickly and leave. But the forest seemed endless. No matter how far I walked, everything looked the same. It was like the trees were shifting, trying to keep me trapped. Then I found the house. It was an old wooden cabin, hidden among the trees. The windows were broken, and the door hung open, creaking in the wind. I should have stayed away, but curiosity got the better of me. I stepped inside. The air was damp and smelled of rot. The floorboards creaked under my feet. The walls were covered in strange symbols, carved deep into the wood. They looked like eyes, staring at me. On the table there was a journal. Its pages were yellow and brittle, but I could still read the writing. It belonged to a man named Yusuf, who had lived there years ago. He wrote about hearing voices in the woods, about seeing shadows that weren't his. He wrote about something he called the Watcher. The Watcher sees all, he wrote. It knows your fears. It feeds on them. Once you enter its domain, it will never let you go. I felt sick. The shadows in the cabin seemed to move, twisting and stretching. I ran out, leaving the journal behind, but the forest had changed again. The path I came from was gone. I was lost. The whispers came back, louder this time. They weren't just calling my name anymore. They were laughing, mocking me. I started running, but no matter how fast I went, the whispers followed. Ah, no. Then I saw it. In the shadows between the trees, something moved. It was tall, its body thin and twisted. Its eyes glowed white, and its face... It had no face, just smooth skin where a face should be. It raised a long, bony hand and pointed at me. I don't remember much after that. I must have passed out, because when I woke up, I was lying at the edge of the forest. My equipment was gone and my clothes were torn. The villagers found me and took me to the clinic. I tried to tell them what happened, but they just shook their heads. "You're lucky you made it out alive," one of them said. But I don't feel lucky. I can still hear the whispers when I close my eyes. And sometimes At night, I see a shadow standing at the edge of my yard, watching me. I know it's waiting. It's waiting for me to return to the deep woods. The days after I left the forest were a blur. My body healed from the cuts and bruises, but my mind stayed in that cursed place. Sleep became a stranger to me. Whenever I closed my eyes, I saw those glowing white orbs staring at me, pulling me back into the darkness. The villagers avoided me. They looked at me with pity, maybe fear. Once, an old man, one of the elders, came to my door. He held a string of beads in his hand and whispered prayers under his breath. "You should leave," he told me. "The woods do not forget. It will come for you." I didn't know where to go. The city? Another village? No matter where I went, I felt it would follow. The Watcher wasn't just a part of the forest. It was something bigger, older, and it had marked me. One night the whispers returned. I was sitting in my small room trying to distract myself with a book when I heard it. Ahmed. The voice was no longer soft and distant. It was right behind me. My blood froze. Slowly I turned around, but there was nothing there. Just shadows dancing on the walls. "Leave me alone!" I shouted, my voice breaking. The shadows grew darker, spreading like spilled ink. They crawled toward me, twisting into shapes, faces with wide mouths and empty eyes. They whispered secrets I didn't want to hear, things about me, my fears, my regrets. I don't know how long I sat there, shaking, until the sun rose and chased the shadows away. But the damage was done. I knew I couldn't keep running from it. So I did the unthinkable. I went back to the forest. The villagers begged me not to go. Sarah, a young girl who used to bring me bread, even cried. "You'll never come back," she said. I nodded because deep down, I knew she was right. But I had to face it. Whatever the Watcher wanted from me, I needed to end this nightmare. The forest greeted me with silence. No birds, no wind, just the crunch of dead leaves under my boots. The trees seemed to bend toward me, their branches like claws. I followed no path this time. I just walked, letting the whispers guide me. As the day turned to night, the forest began to change again. The air thickened, making it hard to breathe. The ground felt soft, like I was walking on flesh. Then I saw the cabin, standing exactly where I'd left it, as if it had been waiting for me. Inside, the journal still lay on the table, open to the last page, but now the words had changed. "You are the chosen. The Watcher awaits. The first house in the city, clothed, pointed, in the sleeping state." The Watcher stepped out of the shadows, taller and more terrifying than before. Its faceless head tilted as it regarded me, its glowing eyes burning into my soul. "What do you want?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. Its voice wasn't a sound, but a feeling, a weight pressing against my mind. To see, to know, to take. Suddenly, I was no longer in the cabin. I was standing in a void, surrounded by endless darkness. Memories played before me like a twisted film, every mistake I'd ever made, every moment of fear and regret. It was tearing me apart piece by piece. But then, I remembered something Yusuf had written in the journal. "It feeds on fear. Show it your strength." With every ounce of courage I had left, I pushed back. "You can't have me." I screamed. "I am not yours. The void trembled, and for a moment I thought I'd won. But then the Watcher laughed, a deep, bone-chilling sound. "You are already mine." The next thing I knew, I was lying at the edge of the forest again. The villagers found me just like before, but this time they didn't come close. They looked at me with wide eyes and whispered among themselves. They didn't understand why until I caught my reflection in a puddle of water. My eyes, they glowed white, just like the Watcher's. Now I know the truth. I didn't escape the forest. The Watcher let me go, but only so it could follow me into the world, and wherever I go, I bring it with me. The whispers are louder now, not just in my head, but all around me. They spread, infecting others, and sometimes at night, when I pass by a mirror, I see not my face, but its. The Watcher isn't in the forest anymore. It's here, with me. And soon it will be with you too. I thought leaving the forest meant freedom, but I was wrong. The curse of the Watcher is like a shadow. It clings to you no matter where you go. At first, I tried to live a normal life. I moved to another town, far from the village, and got a small job in a warehouse. No one knew my story there, and I thought I could start fresh. But the whispers followed. They came at night, faint at first, blending with the hum of the ceiling fan or the distant sound of traffic. But as the days passed, they grew stronger. I started seeing things too, shadows that didn't belong, faces and reflective surfaces that weren't mine. One night, I woke to find my apartment filled with the smell of wet earth, like the forest had crept into my home. I checked every corner, but nothing was there. Yet, when I looked in the mirror, I saw something standing behind me, a tall, thin figure with glowing eyes. I turned quickly, but the room was empty. I didn't sleep after that. The muck spreads. The worst part isn't the fear. It's the isolation. People around me started acting differently. At work, my co-workers avoided me, their eyes darting away whenever I walked past. My landlord came to collect rent one day and refused to step inside. "You bring something dark with you," he muttered, backing away. And then there was the girl next door. Her name was Lena, and she was kind to me when I first moved in. She brought me food once, saying I looked too thin. But now, she wouldn't even look at me. One night, I heard her screaming through the walls. I rushed to her door, banging and shouting her name, but she didn't answer. When the noise stopped, I heard a new sound, a soft, familiar whisper. "Ahmed, you are not alone." The door opened slowly, but the room was empty. Lena was gone, her bed unmade, her belongings untouched. I called the police, but they didn't take me seriously. They said she probably left on her own. But I knew the truth. The Watcher had taken her. The Watcher was waiting for me. As I stepped between the trees, the air grew heavy, like the woods themselves were alive and breathing. The whispers surrounded me, louder than ever, mocking me, pulling me deeper. "Why do you return?" the voice hissed. "I'm here to end this," I shouted, though my voice cracked with fear. The forest opened into a clearing I hadn't seen before. In the center stood a massive tree, its bark black and twisted, its roots spread out like veins, pulsing with a faint, sickly light. And there it was, the Watcher. It emerged from the tree, its body blending with the shadows, its faceless head tilted as if amused. "You cannot escape me," it said, its voice echoing inside my skull. "You are part of me now." But I had come prepared. I pulled a small vial of holy water and a blade etched with ancient prayers I had bought from an old mystic. The Watcher laughed. "Your tools mean nothing here." But I didn't hesitate. I threw the holy water at the tree's roots. They sizzled and writhed, black smoke rising into the air. The Watcher let out a sound like 100 voices screaming at once. I lunged at it with the blade, slashing through its shadowy form.